for 6 weeks. This is their livelihood. And so these are the toughest of the tough. And there they are with the rosaries and the miraculous medals. And so to them, the stars in the old days, let's go back to the sailors of years past, decades past, centuries past, the stars meant survival. Without the stars, before the GPS and all our technology, they wouldn't know where they were going. They had no idea. This is the whole role of Mary. Marian consecration is not to Mary instead of Jesus. Marian consecration is to Jesus with the help of Mary in union with St. Joseph. Father Don does a great job of explaining that. Mary is not the goal. Jesus is the goal. Mary is the guide. For the wise men, was the star the goal? Were they worshiping the star? What was the star? Their guide. The guide that led them to the Christ child. So Jesus said, okay, for centuries after the wise men, do I give them a star? Or do I give them the mother of that baby who lived a human life and gave us an example of being the perfect disciple? Yes. So Mary, like a star, shows where we are going. The stars represented in a way their salvation. This is amazing. The sailors of centuries ago, the stars in a way were their salvation. The stars pointed the way to safety or they would perish. Mary points us the way to Jesus or we will perish. It only took a good storm to spell disaster because their navigation system was gone. If a storm covered up the stars, they had no navigation system and they would be gone. That would be their end. They wouldn't make it. They wouldn't be saved. And so as a star, Mary guides us just as the star navigated the Magi to the Christ child. Mary, as star of the sea, directs us to safety, to salvation, to life beyond just surviving. This is amazing. Her hands, like the stars for the sailors, guide us to the safe harbor of her son. For centuries, sailors went by the stars, and now they don't. It's kind of like us. For centuries, the church and Catholics and Christians went by Mary. Now she's being rejected. This is why we're here. So Mary, Star of the Sea, is a promise that will never be lost. She'll make sure she guides you. The storms of life will never ruin you. We can place ourselves in her hands and know we are safe, not because she saves us, but because she guides us to safety, her son. So now here's what's interesting. There's what we call Marian stars. You know the navigation star? I'm going to show a picture of it in a minute. Marian star symbolisms, they have two versions. The first is the 6-pointed, and then we have the 8-pointed. Let's go to our next slide. What is the 6-pointed star? You all know it as the Star of David. The two triangles, one right side up, down, the Star of David. That's the 6-pointed star. This is in fact the Star of David. Two superimposed triangles pointing in opposite directions. The symbol, do you know what it comes from? Do you know what that symbol is? David's shield. David had a shield with 6 points. And if you would have driven a line through it, it would have been the two triangles. That's where the symbol of the Jews, Israel, comes from. The shape of David's shield had 6 points. And when you draw it up, they draw it as two triangles. And so this is a symbol of David's shield according to tradition. And it is used to highlight Mary's role in salvation as helper in the restitution of the original harmony between God and humanity before the fall. Now, let's go to our next one. You're going to all recognize this. Let's go to our next slide. Recognize that? That is the navigation. North, south, east, and west. That's the navigation system of sailors. That 8-point cross. So the number 8 is fascinating because to the Jews, if you've heard my talks before, what does the number 8 mean? Eternity. So symbolizes salvation. What did we just say the stars were to the sailors? They saved them. So it symbolizes salvation, and its meaning is really derived from Genesis chapter 6, verse 18. Very fascinating. What is that verse? How many people were saved in Noah's Ark? Oh, come on, Catholics. How many people were saved in Noah's Ark? Okay, you got Noah and his 3 sons. There's 4, and all their spouses. There were 8. There were 8 people saved in Noah's Ark. This symbolic 8 and the star, the navigation, the leading, the salvation. So 8 people escaped the deluge, finding salvation in the ark. Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives. So the theological foundation of this title, Star of the Sea, may also be based on 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 41 through 45. Here's what it says. Now I'm paraphrasing. It's a little cloud, if you read this passage, appearing above the sea as a sign of hope, implying that the rain will come and free the land from the drought. It says it is a little cloud, small as a man's hand. This is what it says in the Bible. And it was seen from Mount Carmel. And so, seen from Mount Carmel is believed to be the star of the sea and Mary. And then a sign of hope, which announces freedom and renewal. So guess what happened? Let's go to our next slide. The Carmelites built a church and monastery right there on Mount Carmel and named it Stella Maris, the Star of the Sea. Star of the Sea, they're on a mountain in a desert. It goes back to that passage, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 41 through 45. So the Carmelites built a church and a monastery on Mount Carmel and called it Stella Maris. So many references and some ancient Marian hymns are related to this title. You have Ave Maris Stella, which is from the 8th or the 9th century. Again, hundreds of years before the Protestant Reformation. We Marians, during Advent, we sing Alma Redemptoris Mater, which is from an 11th century hymn, and what we sing here in our prayers if you join us with the Marian Fathers. Now, let's get into something really interesting. There's a good friend of our Marian community that wrote for the National Catholic Register called Joseph Pronichen, and he's a good friend. He's done many articles with us, and he wrote an article called "Who is the Favorite Visitor of the Souls in Purgatory?" Okay, he says, there is one visitor to purgatory that the souls there especially long to see, the Blessed Virgin Mary. Our Lady does go there to help souls. Some saints have been shown or told this. In the 14th century, you ever hear of St. Bridget of Sweden? Very powerful. She was taken on several trips to purgatory. Mary said to her, "I am the mother of all the souls in purgatory, and I am the mother of mercy. To these, my children, who are in the greatest need of my assistance. In their torments, they cannot help themselves, so she helps them." Now, before we get too far in purgatory, did you hear my talk a couple weeks ago? People always criticizing purgatory is not the Bible. Please, on this YouTube channel, I have a whole series of talks on purgatory. Father Thaddeus did 90 days of talks on purgatory. But one of the ones that gets it to me is people always use the example of the good thief. I get these letters all the time saying, "You're telling us there's a purgatory, then you completely contradict the meaning of the good thief in the Bible." No. First of all, let's talk about that for a second, the good thief in the Bible. Now, let's look at the whole situation. Now, was the good thief with Jesus that day in heaven? Come on, Catholics. Was the good thief with Jesus that day in heaven? No. Jesus wasn't even in heaven on that day. Jesus was still 43 days away from entering into heaven. Jesus wasn't even into heaven. Is Jesus going to paradise. Remember the gospel passage about the parable of Lazarus and the rich man? It said he went down to the bosom of Abraham. He didn't go to heaven. He went to the bosom of Abraham. The Jews used the word paradise. What that meant was there were two areas of the bosom of Abraham. There was the holding place for those who were not righteous, and there was a holding place for the righteous, like Moses and David, so that when Christ resurrected, they would be freed and then entered into heaven. That was still called paradise because they were waiting for the glory. It was still a good thing. So the word paradise to the Jews did not mean heaven. It meant purgatory. It meant a layover, a waiting. To them, they called it Sheol or Hades. It was a place of holding, of waiting, of preparation. So what Jesus was telling the good thief is, this day you'll be with me when I descend to the dead and I liberate all of humanity that is the righteous, that is waiting. And then I will free them. You will be with me. See how we don't learn this as Catholics? And so purgatory is real. I watched some of the talks we had. And so anyway, St. Bridget of Sweden said that Mary talked to her. And Mary also told her that because she is a compassionate mother, she goes there often to visit the holy souls. Okay, St. Bridget also heard Jesus saying to his mother, "Thou art my mother. Thou art the mother of mercy. Thou art the consoler of those who are in purgatory." She heard the words of Jesus to St. Bridget. Then in his book, The Glories of Mary, St. Alphonsus Liguori, very good, wrote, "And what other consolation have they in their sufferings other than Mary, and the help of this mother of mercy?" Notice they keep calling her Mother of Mercy. St. Alphonsus, he had said, Mary said to St. Bridget, as a poor sick person, suffering and deserted on his bed, feels himself refreshed by any words of consolation. Just like that, so these souls feel themselves consoled in hearing just the name of Mary. Only her name. The name alone of Mary. A name of hope, of salvation, a guide, a star in the tumults of the sea, which these beloved children often invoked in that prison. It is for them a great comfort. St. Alphonsus Liguori said, not only does Mary console those servants in purgatory, she also releases them from this prison and delivers them by her intercession. Oh, Father, that's blasphemy. Only Jesus can do that. She is not releasing them from hell. And purgatory is not a place for the forgiveness of sins. The forgiveness of sins happens in this life, on this earth, in the confessional. What purgatory is a place of detachment from things we are attached to. People, places, or things. Things we are attached to. Purgatory is a place of preparation. So Mary has the authority to release a soul from purgatory. That's not salvation. Every soul in purgatory is saved. True or false? True. Every soul in purgatory is saved. She's not granting them salvation. This is heresy, Father. You gotta understand the theology. You gotta understand the theology. And so St. Bernardine of Siena explained that in purgatory, Mary has a certain dominion and plenitude of power to relieve them that was given to her by her Son, as well as to deliver them from their pain. Why? She's the Mother of Mercy. This is a gift given by Christ, according to all the saints, 1,500 years before the Protestant Reformation. So Mary can help the souls heavenward. She doesn't save them. Let me repeat that. Mary does not save them. She's the guide to salvation. There is a difference. The salvation is Jesus. Just like the salvation for the sailors was not the star. The salvation was making it into port. The star guided them there. So the saints have said, on what day, this is interesting, did Mary empty purgatory? Her Assumption. Her Assumption. We Marian fathers take our vows, and And what day is the Assumption? August the 15th. She asked Jesus for this favor, the only favor in all of sacred apostolic tradition that Mary ever asked outside of Cana. She asked the favor of Jesus that on her Assumption, purgatory would be emptied. For the favor of taking with her all the souls in purgatory, and it was emptied on the Assumption. 15th century French theologian Jean Gerson said many scholars have looked into this and through sacred apostolic tradition have confirmed and said it is true. The 15th century Saint Denis of the Carthusian related that on the celebrations, what are the days that most souls are released from purgatory? Christmas, Easter. His mother goes with throngs of angels to purgatory and releases many souls. It makes perfect sense, St. Alphonsus Liguori said. He said, St. Bernardine says that the Blessed Virgin has the power of delivering souls from purgatory by her prayers and the application of her merits, especially if they have been devoted to her. She does this as the star of the sea. We need that. You want your souls of your loved ones out of purgatory? Pray to Our Lady Star of the Sea. All right, let's go to our next slide. Mary appeared